Hello friends, welcome back to Block On. I was really fortunate to attend the recently concluded 2024 ESRA Congress in Prague. I learned so many things in the regional anesthesia workshops, but today I am sharing three important lessons that will change my practice. In fact, I have already incorporated them into my daily practice. It was really an amazing experience, and I just can't wait to dive into it with you. So, without wasting time, let's begin. One of the key lessons I learned from Dr. John McDonnell was that when performing an axillary brachial plexus block, it's better not to start scanning directly at the axilla, which we are usually tend to do. Instead, we can start scanning distally at or just above the elbow crease on an extended arm and forearm. First, identify the brachial artery, and the nerve next to it will be the median nerve. Initially, it will lie on the medial side, and then it will come towards the lateral, and ultimately it will be lying above the artery in more than 90% of the cases. Here we can see the median nerve lies around 11 to 12 o'clock position in relation to the artery. So for median nerve scanning, we started at elbow and reached axilla. Now we will start from axilla and move our linear probe towards the elbow. In order to identify the ulnar nerve, look at the area between the 12 to 3 or 12 to 4 o'clock positions. And the moment you start moving your probe towards the elbow again, you will see the neural structure or the nerve moving away from the artery. So as we move the probe towards elbow, the ulnar nerve you will find superficial to the fascia of the triceps muscles and all the way back to the elbow and towards the back of the olecranon, and ultimately it goes into the groove between the medial epicondyle and the olecranon. That confirms the ulnar nerve. Now we will go back to axilla again in order to identify the radial nerve. While moving the probe back towards the axilla, at the mid-humeral level, we will identify the radial nerve as it passes through the radial groove or the spiral groove and passes along the medial aspect of the humerus, as you can see here. You will see while you are moving the probe towards the axilla, suddenly at some point one hyperechoic elongated structure will come into your ultrasound screen. As the probe moves towards the axilla proximally, the nerve moves into the facial plane above the conjoint tendon, and it lies between the 4 to 6 o'clock positions related to the axillary artery. So if we do the scout scanning in this way, we will not only able to identify the individual nerve but also their correct position around the artery. And last one to be identified is the musculocutaneous nerve. You just have to move the probe cephalad to bring it into the view, where you will find the musculocutaneous nerve inside the substance of the coracobrachialis or in between coracobrachialis and biceps brachii in few cases. So for a quick review, we will follow the McDonald's way and keep the probe away, that is away from axilla. We'll start from the elbow, we'll go towards the axilla, again we'll come back to the elbow, and again from elbow we'll go back to the axilla and just move the probe cephalar direction to identify the musculocutaneous nerve. So in this way, we can identify the four nerves and then subsequently we can block it. I found it very interesting and very satisfying to know all position of the nerves and identify the individual neural structures. And in ergonomics point of view, as you can see in this picture, you are sitting in front of the patient, you can speak to your patient while doing the block, you can see the monitor yourself. It might be little difficult while doing the needling if you are not used to this position, but I don't think it's a big challenge. Probably with little bit of practice it might be easy as well. The second tip was on the ergonomics to perform the ultrasound guided central neuraxial block. And again, it was from none other than Dr. John McDonnell. You can see on the screen the position of the patient, that is on the lateral side, and the performer has to sit facing the back of the patient. The monitor is in front of the performer, so he can monitor during the procedure. And the ultrasound machine, you can keep it at the head end or on the opposite side. The non-dominant hand in which I am holding the probe, here my left hand is well rested on the patient's non-dependent hip. Then place the curvilinear probe over the sacrum slightly away from the midline. As you move the probe in Kefauver direction, you will gradually identify the interlaminar spaces, and ultimately you will achieve your desired view in the paramedian sagittal oblique scan. After optimization of the image, you can hold the needle on dominant hand and perform the procedure comfortably. So here, don't forget to follow McDonald's way and start the scanning away, that is away from midline. I found it very comfortable because the left hand is well rested and I can perform the procedure with the right hand very comfortably, especially when you are doing the ultrasound guided lumbar puncture or the subarachnoid block. The third important lesson was very interesting. The posterior cutaneous nerve of thigh or posterior femoral cutaneous nerve block in the popliteal fossa. Yes, you heard me right. I was also surprised when Dr. Jarnot Gorsevsky demonstrated this technique to us in the ESRA workshop. Posterior femoral cutaneous nerve usually gets blocked in the proximal approaches of the sciatic nerve blocks. At the popliteal fossa, it can be blocked by subcutaneous infiltration along a line 5 centimeter above and parallel to the popliteal crease. That is the anatomical landmark technique. So many popliteal sciatic nerve blocks we have done, but never looked at the subcutaneous plane or the V-shaped fat-filled area between the biceps femoris muscle on the lateral side and the semitendinosus and semimembranosus muscles on the medial side. If you remember, we look at the fat-filled flat tunnel or the V-shaped fat-filled area between the sartorius muscle and the tensor fasciolata muscles for lateral femoral cutaneous nerve of thigh. Also, we look for the QTs, that is anterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh, in the fat-filled channel above the sartorius muscle. So here comes another cutaneous nerve in the fat-filled area. To identify the posterior femoral cutaneous nerve with ultrasound, place the probe over the popliteal fossa like the way you usually do the popliteal fossa block, and look for the fat-filled space between the biceps femoris muscle laterally and the semitendinosus semimembranosus medially. The nerve appears as a small one or two hyperechoic, round or oval shaped structure. We can trace it up to the mid thigh and above it up to the subgluteal fold. You can block it anywhere. The more proximally you block, the less chances of sparing of the terminal branches. Now, you might be thinking why we need to block the posterior femoral cutaneous nerve of thigh. This block can be used as a supplementary block or as a rescue block. Because if you go through the anatomical study by Figel et al., posterior femoral cutaneous nerve has a significant sensory innervation of the lower leg. Our previous understanding was that posterior femoral cutaneous nerve of thigh ends at the popliteal crease, but it was found only around 10% cases. The PFCN was found to be terminated at the proximal leg in around 46% cases and at distal lower leg around 45% of cases. And in more than 40% cases, the PFCN was accompanied by a small descending branch of the inferior gluteal artery, which can be visible on the ultrasound also, as you can see here. So, isn't it interesting? Once you see it, you can never unsee it. So, while performing the next popliteal fossa block, try to locate the posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh and let me know in the comment section whether you are able to locate it or not. So those are a few key lessons I took away from ESRA Congress in Prague. There were so many valuable tips from wonderful teachers from various parts of the world. I will discuss about all those inputs in my subsequent videos.
Isn't it amazing how simple changes can make big difference in our daily practice? So how do you feel about these tips? Please let me know in the comment section. If you find this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe for more such content on Block On. See you in the next one. Until then,